SMU had its day at ACC Media Day yesterday. And do we want to start with the quarterback or do we want to start with the coach? I guess we'll start with the quarterback.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, man, we got a great show for you today. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, and thank you for spending half an hour or so with me. My name is Grayson Singleton, and this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on this show today, you can see it right there. We're going to talk about what Rhett Lashlee said about the CFP at ACC Media Day. We're also going to tell you what Rhett Lashlee talked about in terms of recruiting, both when he was asked about it and in his opening statement. So I'll start this off by saying this before we get into our content today. Rhett Lashlee, I love you, man. Kevin Jennings, I love you too. You guys gave us content for the next 2 weeks until we get to fall camp, man. I thought it was spectacular what SMU, particularly those two, did at the podium today because, boy, was that fun. And we'll talk more about Rhett Lashlee here in just a couple of minutes. But let's start with the quarterback, Kevin Jennings, because if you weren't confident in the projected progression of Kevin Jennings before you hear what he said at ACC Media Day, what I'm about to tell you is going to make you a lot more confident in the quarterback. Now, there's a lot going in the right direction for Kevin Jennings. First full year as a starter, second year in the system. He's got continuity with his offensive coordinator, who they were able to retain after a big year, a big surprising year from SMU in 2024. And he obviously will be another year more mature. So we already have those intangibles working in SMU's favor. We also have the tangible things, the arm strength, the athleticism, the mobility. We know all of that, the strength. And that's only going to get better because he's at the age where those sorts of things continue to increase as you continue to work out and get older. But what do we know about what's upstairs with Kevin Jennings? And I think that's what he shed a light on a lot during his time to speak at ACC Media Day. So let's go ahead and we're going to get right into the content because there was a lot that he said that I thought was highly, highly impressive. So the first thing that caught my eye was he was asked the question, you obviously had a fantastic season last year, but struggled against Penn State on the road in the college football playoff. What can you take away about handling that hostile environment, and how will you put that into action when you all go to Clemson this season? Honestly, I think it's a great question. Kevin Jennings, short and sweet. His answer was shorter than the question. Quote, I took a lot from that game. I tell myself all the time, I needed that game. I needed a bad game like that to bounce back and come back in and remind myself that I can play at this level. I can do all the things I'm capable of doing. Just taking that game and going to the Clemson game is going to be kind of the same environment, just looking forward to heading to Clemson. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that are going to be different between going to Happy Valley and going to Clemson. Number one, it's not going to be 10 degrees. I think that plays into SMU's advantage right there. The fact that you're not going to be having to figure out how to avoid frostbite. Number two, Clemson's a hell of an environment. Clemson is a raucous environment with a great atmosphere and an electric fan base. It is not Happy Valley. I don't know if y'all seen Happy Valley. Happy Valley, especially during a whiteout game, boy, that is an intimidating place to play. And that's not to say that Clemson isn't, but there's levels to this. We rank things all the time, and Penn State is a little bit above Clemson. So I love that they got the weather, they got the environment, and it's going to be a little bit of a tone down on both of those fronts when SMU goes to Clemson. Now for the real part. Kevin Jennings sucked in that playoff game. He did. Point blank, end of story. He was bad. And the entire offense was bad. To the surprise of Probably no one. The offensive line couldn't hold up against a Penn State team that is known for a front seven, and their front seven did not disappoint in that game. SMU looked like a team that, quite frankly, and I think all of us can probably agree with this, was a year ahead of schedule. And eventually the teams that are a year ahead of schedule, that comes to roost at some point. Cool, got it. But being in that environment and having that sort of experience can only help you psychologically going forward. We talk about this in professional leagues all the time. You got to knock at the door and knock at the door and knock out the door until you finally get there. Think of like what the Boston Celtics did all those years running into LeBron before ultimately they make it through and win a championship a couple of years ago. This is a very common theme that happens in sports. And you just continue to build on it and build on it and build on it. So I love that KJ right now is like, hey, we're just gonna build on this. This next question is one that I have harped on a ton ever since we started this podcast. The question was essentially, with all the change going on in college football, you came back and now you're with the staff for another year. How is that continuity going to help you? Kevin Jennings says, quote, "It definitely helped me a lot just coming in the building. I've got the same coach, same offense, just things like that. Not me having to think too much of stuff I've got to remember. I've got to learn this and all that stuff. It's really a big help having a great coaching staff around me. They coach me each day and every day to get better and just trying to uplift that trust," end quote. Now, there is another answer to another question that I want to piggyback that off of. You were able to do a little bit of everything in the air, on the ground, but heading into the 2025 season, what have you been the most focused on improving in your overall game as a leader, etc.? What are you most excited to showcase in the upcoming season? KJ says, quote, "The things I've been working on, just working on the little things, taking that very seriously, being a better leader, being a more vocal leader at that, and also, and this is one that I've harped on, just decision making. That kind of cost me a little bit last year." Does it not start to seem that things are really coming together for Kevin Jennings? Because he's now in an offense he's comfortable with. He's learning nothing new. He's just building upon what he was incrementally trying to learn from last year. And the one word I take away from this, those two quotes I just gave from Kevin Jennings, is command. He didn't say the word, but if you add up all the pieces of what he just said, being more vocal, being more of a leader, decision-making, comfort in the offense, if you add all of those things up and you try to sum all of that up in one word, it's command. He's going to have a better command of that huddle. He's going to have a better command of that offense. He's going to have a better command of this team. And the vibe is going to follow. Everything that I've been talking about the last couple of weeks that I've been looking out of Kevin Jennings and what you're going to look for out of KJ to display in the 2025 season, he just said that in 3 sentences. He basically just said, I've got better command of the situation around me. And that's what you're hoping for with a guy who was inserted during the season last year, showed some really good flashes of what he could be in a situation just like what's going to be the case in 2025. And he has taken that off season and done exactly that. He's going to be a better leader. He's going to be more vocal because he's going to be more comfortable. You can't lead people in a situation that you're new in and haven't gotten your feet grounded in. But now he has. And the next step is to be that vocal leader. And I would expect a lot of really big things out of Kevin Jennings this year because he's got the talent. I think he's got the right stuff upstairs. And he's going to marry all of that with further command of his situation and of the offense. And that, combined with what SMU's got around him, defense still going to be pretty good. I like SMU this year. Just based off what I hear that, I like it. I like it. I like what I hear from Kevin Jennings. And I think this team's going to be really good. And they've got a chance to do something special. Even in Clemson, by the way. So that was the quarterback. He didn't really make too many waves. The coach, on the other hand, oh boy. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands instead of just hanging out in your living room watching the game. Well, that's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite another homie to come with you. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for any upcoming MLB games, even like my team, the Yankees, who are in Canada right now. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, always guaranteed. Well, the quarterback pretty much said what we wanted him to say. And when I say something like that, I don't mean that I think he's lying or not being genuine. I think he perfectly is, 100%. But he did say what we all wanted to hear from him, and for that, I applaud him. And I think it's going to make us that much more excited. Then there was Rhett Lashlee. We're not going to talk about him taking shots at the SEC today. I might save that for a later episode. But he was on fire today. I got a lot of stuff I want to get to from Rhett Lashlee in this part of the show. By the way, since you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and click that notification icon so you can get notified whenever we go live at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time every single day. The podcast is released wherever you get your podcast at 8 a.m. in the morning, so you have that on your morning drive. Let's get into Rhett Lashlee. Because he talked about the state of college football, and I think he did so eloquently, by the way. He talked about the state of the college football playoff, also articulated pretty well. And while giving the proper respect where it was due, Coach Lashlee also talked about there's some things that need to change here. And I want to start with the college football playoff because the college football playoff is in this transition where it might go to 14 teams, which I think is utterly ridiculous. Why would you have a tournament of 14? It doesn't make any sense. It could go to 16, which would be nice, which would be best, I think. Here's what he had to say about that. He said, quote, "We need to reimagine the college football playoff. It's at a time where I know that's being discussed. The players and the fans come first. That's what we're supposed to be about. I think more is always better. I know it's out there. I think 16 teams would be great. More access for teams, more players, and more conferences." Okay, let's put a pin right there because I think he's on to something, but I think it's a little bit dystopian. The players and the fans come first. That's what we're supposed to be about. True? Yeah, that's cool. We all know what this is. This is a TV show that ESPN and the NCAA and the conferences are going to use to make more money. I don't think there's any need on expounding upon that any further because we all know that to be the case. He says, I think more is always better to a point, and I think 16 teams would be great. More access for more teams, more players, and more conferences. 100% agree. I 100% agree with that. I think 16, with the way college football shapes up, I think 16 teams is perfect. Now, I don't know if that allows you to have that big gap between the conference championships and the start of the college football playoff because you don't want this running into close to when the Super Bowl is. I don't think you want the season to be that long, especially because college football season actually starts a week or two before the NFL. And the NFL has 17 games now. So keep that in mind. But 16 teams is great. It is more access for more teams. And I do think a 16-team playoff gets us closer. It'll do one of two things. And I don't think it'll do both. It'll either get us closer to determining a real national champion, or it will test the fortitude, and it'll just be survival of the fittest. Now, I think there is a realm where those two can be there at the same time, but generally that doesn't happen. I think it also gives us a chance to avoid what happened last year. And that is Oregon being the number 1 seed and its first game playing against Ohio State. I think that gets rid of that. And it also gets rid of the need to have to reseed. Now, I'm not here to tell you how all the rankings should fall. I'm not here to do all that. I'm not here to say, well, we get our pool of 16 and then we seed that pool of 16. Okay, cool. I'm not here to say if you win your conference, you automatically get a home game. That would probably be the most obvious one to do. But again, we're not going to discuss all that. But 16 teams gives us a little bit more clarity than what we were dealing with. Now for the fun part. Says Coach Lashlee, the committee has a really hard decision. We were up close and personal with that a year ago, and I respect what they do. But honestly, it's a situation that's set up for failure because there's human bias, and there's always going to be. I think if we could remove the committee from the situation, it would help because there's no other major professional sport or major sport in America or the world that uses a committee to select their tournament participants. You look at America, it's the NFL, it's college football. I think we need to relook at that. Again, I don't think you said anything wrong there. Now, putting that into practice is going to be the challenge of our lifetime when it comes to college football, because how do you select these 16 teams without the committee? And at this point, you really want to remove the word select. You want that to be earned. The problem is there's no equal playing field here, because with so many teams playing their conference schedules, unless you have a scheduling czar and a system where everybody is scheduled along the same footing, there is no way to do this without a committee. So I don't think a committee is going anywhere. The only way a committee goes anywhere is if we use a computer, and then we're back to basically an expanded BCS system, which obviously nobody wants. The only problem with the BCS system is that, well, it was only selecting 2 teams. So without level scheduling, there is no way to do this without a committee. And if you're going to have a committee of humans, there's going to be human bias, which opens to conflict of interest, which is where Rhett Lashlee is coming from, which is understandable to everybody. But I think 16 teams gives us the best chance, even with a committee, to make sure all the deserved participants are there. I think that is a good point, a good starting point, because you look at the NFL, there are 14 teams now that compete in the postseason tournament. The NBA has 16. Major League Baseball has 14 total, I think. Name me a time where there's a team outside of that 14 to 16 range that could reasonably say they were going to win a championship. I will wait. So if you're going to a 16 team, which I think is a great stopping point, by the way, and I think for me is the ideal number, you're going to get all of the teams in there that could win a national championship. You're not going to leave any national championship contender out. Now, what that does is it gives a buffer for the committee. Basically, the only thing they could really mess up, unless they make some egregious selection mistake, is completely screw up the seeding, which that's going to be a tricky challenge too. But 16, I think, sort of covers what Rhett Lashlee is saying, is that we don't want so much in the hands of the committee. And if you go to 16 teams, that takes that out, because it becomes obvious at that point that you're not leaving any national championship contending teams out. And if you're left out of a field of 16, that's more your fault than the committee. Again, barring some egregious miscarriage of justice. So when I look at what Rhett Lashlee said here, I think he was on a heater here. I think he covered the things that need to be covered. I think he said what he thought. He didn't mince words. He said, look, we need 14-16 because it's better for the fans and it's better for the players and the teams. I think you're correct there. We also need to figure out a way to get rid of committee bias. In a dreamland, that's great. I would love to have a system where we just look at raw records, but the way college football is scheduled and the way the economics of college football works, that's just impossible. So how do you level out the influence of a committee? You get more teams in and you sort of mirror the other professional leagues where these are the teams that we think can win a national championship and the guys outside of it, probably not. And I think 16 is that number. I think there's more than 12. I really do, because with 12, you cut off the ability of a championship caliber team to get hot. But I think 16 is that good cutoff right there. So day one of breaking down Rhett Lashlee and his statements at ACC Media Day, and there's going to be multiple days where we talk about multiple things with what Coach Lashlee said. I think he started off on a really good foot. Now, tomorrow, I might be looking sideways at him, but for now, Coach Lashlee, you have a fan in me, sir. All right, let's wrap things up here on Locked On SMU. Let's talk about another topic that Rhett Lashlee touched on, and that was the topic of recruiting. And he was asked about this. He also said something about recruiting in his opening statement, but I want to get to his answer of the question. You talked about recruiting is at an all-time high, which it is at SMU. Currently, you guys rank 31st nationally with 5 4-star recruits. That's also a school high. How are you leveraging the school's ACC and Texas location to attract top talent? And what's your vision for the roster going forward? Now, they do currently rank, I'm going to pull this up right fast, because last I checked, it was a little bit higher according to Rivals. According to Rivals, it's 21. So that could have just been a misprint on the transcript that I'm reading. Also, they have more than 5 4-star commits. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which was what I thought the last time I counted. So 21st nationally, 8 4-star commits in the 2026 class. Now, they signed 5 4-stars in the 2025 class, and I believe that class ended up being ranked around 20. So if that's what that question, the person that asked that question was referring to, I think he would be correct. But let's talk about the 2026 class as it pertains to this as well. Recruiting is at an all-time high. It certainly is. And here's how Lashlee answered the question. 1 year in, it's a great partnership for us and the ACC. We hoped that it would be. Grateful to the commissioners and the others for allowing us to join the league. Also, the league has helped us. We're in the city of Dallas. It's arguably the best county in America. I think he says country, but I mean the best city in America. There you go. Could be considered a country at times. It's funny. It's the best city in America, but it deserves a big-time college football team. And Dallas loves winners. And our guys have given that city that the past couple of years, and the city has embraced that. Arguably, year in and year out, the best high school talent comes out of the Metroplex, true. So for us to be positioned there as the only school within 30 miles of downtown Dallas is a huge advantage for us. A lot of those kids, some of them are sitting up here, KJ, Isaiah, Wokobia, can speak to that. They're from the city. Kids want to stay in Dallas. They want to stay and play in Texas. We just had to give them a reason. They want to play on the biggest stage, play in that championship game against Clemson, play in the college football playoff. So being in the ACC has allowed us to do that and put our program back on the national stage where we feel like we belong. Amen, amen, and amen. We could end the podcast just on that, but we're not going to. The perfect storm happened. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The ingredients have always been there. SMU being in Dallas, Dallas being the football factory that it was, and there's a Power 4 conference out there that needs another team. All of that came together in the perfect storm that was necessitated by the changing in college football and how revenue was going to change and paying players and whatnot. All of that came together so perfectly at the perfect time. And look what the marriage birthed. A trip to the college football playoff, and recruiting has just taken off. It's been bonkers. And Dallas, like I've said, DFW has been waiting for a college football power because there aren't that many major markets around the country that don't have it. Off the top of my head, New York City and San Francisco are the only ones I can think of. Chicago's got one, Miami's got one, LA's got one, maybe two. All the major markets have it. Oklahoma City's got one. I mean, Oklahoma City's 20 minutes away from Norman. And you just go down the list. New Orleans has Louisiana. Dallas was on an island of very few inhabitants of major markets that don't have a college football team. That's a powerhouse. And they got it. And what Rhett Lashlee says as it pertains to recruiting, it's showing. Rhett Lashlee is not just talking out of his you-know-what. He's actually telling you what the data is telling you and what the kids are telling you. You get you a relevant team in DFW, we are ready to come. Just give us something to come to. Give us something close to home in Texas, no state income tax, pretty decent weather throughout the football season, and an opportunity to play in front of everybody for all the marbles. And we'll be there. We're there. And it's showing now. It's showing now because SMU's getting games against Clemson, against Miami, against Penn State, in the ACC Championship, in the CFP. And the kids have responded. And that's all it really took. Because Dallas is a hell of a city. It's my hometown. I know I'm wearing a New York hat, but it's my hometown. I grew up there. I love going back. Dallas is a hell of a city, man. And when you bring that sort of a caliber of a city with that sort of a caliber of a rising program that has already shown that it's playing for championships, that's what's going to happen. And that's the simple answer to the question that Rhett Lashlee answered. All he had to say was, look at the formula. Look at the ingredients that all of a sudden have now melded together and birthed a pretty dangerous thing. He ends that answer by saying, all four of the players that we brought here to represent SMU are great college football players that played great high school football in Texas. That's going to continue to be our formula. Sounds like a pretty good plan to me. And look, you're not going to bat 1,000 on this. Texas is still going to get some of those kids, even though Texas has cast a wide net and done so successfully in recent recruiting cycles. Some of the guys will go to TCU. Some of them will go to Baylor. Houston will get its kids. Oklahoma will still get its North Texas kids. They're leading for Davian Gross, who's a 4-star wide receiver from Frisco Lone Star. LSU will still get its kids. Alabama will still get its kids. You're not going to bat 1,000. But if you have a more than respectable ratio, you're in a good spot because kids don't have to leave and go so far from their parents. And in turn, you're going to produce some pretty good seasons and some pretty good NFL draft prospects, and the cyclical effect will continue to happen. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On SMU as we are in day one of reacting to ACC Media Day. Thank you for making us your first listen today. Also, be sure to check out the portal with Brian Smith. He'll tell you all the things and all the information going on in the changing world of college football. I'm Grayson Singleton. We will talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On SMU. Take it easy, everybody.